Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we kick off, I am so excited about this, we kick off our retrospective on the Poltergeist series as we lead up to the brand new 2015 Poltergeist remake, reboot, whatever it is. And I can tell you, I have not seen a trailer. I have not seen a single trailer. I have no idea what that movie is going to be like. All right, bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, Poltergeist, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it, so warning, spoilers ahead from Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars and co-creator of the comics Psycom from Tokyo Pop and Clockworks from Humanoid. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy! Also in Austin is Drew Edwards, writer for Rockabilly Online and creator and writer of that long-running comic Halloween Man. Say hello, Drew.
I'm going to think of myself as Craig T. Nelson's spiritual stunt double this episode.
Awesome. Before, after. And also, joining us from Denver, home of Cheeseman Park, which was, of course, the thing that Steven Spielberg became obsessed with and led him to write this film. As always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
I prefer not to think of myself as the pot-smoking mom, although she is considerably younger than I am, so I guess that wouldn't be a terrible thing.
Hey, this is Colorado. You can do whatever the hell you want.
No,
okay.
I don't mean that. I just mean I'm not gonna identify with the particular situation she finds herself in because I don't want to invite it in my own life.
Okay. Done deal. All right. According to Wikipedia, Poltergeist, and this is usually like just one sentence, but we got two paragraphs here because I really want to share it. Poltergeist is a 1982 American supernatural horror film directed by Tobe Hooper and co-written and produced by Steven Spielberg. It is the first and most successful entry in the Poltergeist film series, set in California in the suburbs. The plot focuses on a family whose home is invaded by malevolent ghosts that abduct the family's younger daughter. The film was ranked number 80 on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments, and the Chicago Film Critics Association named it the 20th scariest film ever made, and I can't believe it was as low as 20. I kind of feel like it should be closer to the top. The film also appeared at number 84 on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Thrills list, and Poltergeist was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. So this was a big, big movie in 1982. Let's get our opening thoughts. I don't think we've started with Julia in a couple of weeks, so, and let's make them fast because there's a lot to discuss in this. Let's go Julia, Tony, Drew, and then I'll say something. So if there's anything left, you guys may cover it all. Julia, opening thoughts. It's 1982, Poltergeist. I
do not believe I saw Poltergeist in 1982, although I might have, because I would have been 11, so that might have been around the time I started watching horror movies. But anyway, it was close to that time, and I've seen it a couple times since then. But I realized watching it this time that I've combined the first one and the second one because I was sure that some of the scenes in the second one were in the first one, but they are not. Anyway, I having watched now 100 and some odd horror movies with you guys, I have become more immune to being terrified by movies, and so this one didn't scare me as much this time as it had in the past, but I still think it's a really freaking scary movie.
Very good. All right. Tony, welcome back to Poltergeist. What are your thoughts?
I really, really like this movie. I think I didn't see it. I definitely didn't see it in theater. I'm pretty sure I saw it with my stepbrothers on cable at some point when I was hanging out with them. And it has a lot of just awesome, scary bits. It's also got a lot that I'm sure this Poltergeist remake they're going to try to fix. But there's a lot of things, if somebody were to watch this, it would be like watching people, dial the operator in old, in a black and white movie. Like, the fact that, we've talked about it before, television goes off the air. There's static.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
There's a time on your TV where you can watch nothing but static. And that happened every night, and it was part of your family, thing. Like, well, TV's over.
No more TV, right?
That's where the ghosts come in. And so afterwards, when you saw static on your TV, you thought of nothing but, well, that's the time ghosts can potentially come and get me. Stuff like that totally doesn't the world we live in doesn't operate that way anymore. I guess that's why we have the Ring and stuff like that. But they happen later. But yeah, there's really great bits. The thunder bit works and is scary when you're a kid as well. There's a lot of really great stuff in here. The practical effects are really awesome and just gruesome in a lot of places. I like also that there's the family in it is like a pretty close-knit, regular family. Loving family, that, hey, the dad's, he does a lot of his work, but he's not like, I live for my work. Like, there's no, like, bad guys in the family. It's about trying to keep a family together in this crazy situation.
Well, that's a really good point. This is not like Rob Zombie. I'm sorry to pick on Rob Zombie, but it's not like a Rob Zombie family.
We keep doing that. I feel so bad. Like, I feel like people would think, like, if I ever meet Rob Zombie and he ever listened, he would just be like, yeah, jerk. Guess who's famous and it's not you. Like, I just feel like
we're just going to have to do a Rob Zombie retrospective.
But
so we can really just get it all out of our system.
But I actually like Rob Zombie, and even though I don't like a decent amount of his film work, I think he's awesome. I think he's a great director. I think he's a great visual director. But I just think it's funny. We always come back to that, and I always feel a little bad because I really like his music.
I should have picked somebody else.
And
I'm just saying
I know, but Drew and I talked about this too. I was like, why? Like, I don't, like, yeah, if he were ever listen, he'd be like, man, these guys are real jerks. Like, why do they hate me? And
then you wipe his tears away with hundreds of dollar bills and go sleep on a golden.
I know.
Go sleep in his golden coffin and.
I know, but you still don't like it.
Like riding away in the
I like Rob Zombie too. I think his music is cool, and he's actually made a few movies that I like. But he's.
Now we're still talking about Rob Zombie. We need to come.
We've been talking about Poltergeist.
I know, but it's just funny. Like, it always seems to go that way, and I'm always like, oh man, I don't mean it.
My fault.
Sorry, Rob Zombie.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Drew, what do you think about Rob Zombie? No, I'm sorry. What do you think? What do you think about Poltergeist?
Well, I think Rob Zombie is a titan of horror rock, and as far as what I think about Poltergeist, like Tony, I kind of really center in on the overall 80s-ness of this movie, and I like that about it, and it does immediately take me back because I remember when the TV would do that when we were kids. One of my brothers, like clockwork, would always walk up and go, "They're here," because of this movie. And, I'm sure just about any kid growing up in the 80s probably would do that Carol Ann impression. I really like this movie. I like the practical effects. I think, I almost like it from, like, I love the fact that it opens with the national anthem. Because I like it's not an ironic use of the national anthem, but there is something like underliningly sinister about the way that it's used. And like Tony said a lot of the things that I was planning on saying. I like the family unit here. I like the fact that they're not super dysfunctional, but I do like the fact that you kind of get the history of this couple. Like, they're a couple of pot-smoking yuppies who probably were hippies back in the 70s, and now they're all about Ronald Reagan and hiding that they're smoking pot from their kids. And
that's right. It's just a fun flick. I don't know that I'm scared by it anymore. When I was a kid and it would come on, late night TV, and I'd watch it, I was absolutely terrified of this movie. I don't think it continues to hold that kind of power over me, but it does continue to fascinate. And I have to say, most of the special effects in this movie hold up extremely well. Like, there's a few that look a little bit clunky, but for the most part, like, this is a movie that has not dated that badly with its special effects. Yeah.
And that's all I got.
To mention, you were talking about the 80s sensibility of it, and in fact, think about a movie like From Hell that tries to give you a good look at Victorian times and puts a thriller into it. It's very similar to that. This is the 80s, and it gets a lot of these details down in such a perfect way that it's almost like they thought about giving you a good look at what it was like to be in the middle class.
One thing I find interesting is that they use the suburbia, but it's a little while until it becomes the suburbia of, like, Edward Scissorhands, where it's, like, a backlash against that. It's really, in what Drew pointed out about them opening with the national anthem, it really is like, hey, here's America. This is where workaday people go. And it's very, like, they kind of hit on it. Like, workaday people live in suburbia where the house, when they cut from the one spot and they cut to him selling a house, and it's exactly the same. Like, the wallpaper, every single thing is the same.
Let's talk about this first.
What I love about the use of the national anthem is exactly what you're hitting upon. This is the American dream, and it has corpses at its roots.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I think, it is
a
cool
beautiful vision. Go ahead.
What's cool is that it's not necessarily against suburbia in that, like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink way that eventually becomes like the punk way. Right, like everything in suburbia
I'm with
is evil.
Tony. I think there's a genuine. Well, let me just say this real quick, and then you can disagree. But I'm with Tony. I believe that there is, at the beginning of this, a genuine love and affection for. Look at the middle class dream. Look at the house. Look at the cars. Look at how wonderful it is. Look at the TVs. Look at all the toys and how great our lives are. And I don't even think it's cynical. I think that you're supposed to go, wow, what a wonderful life these people have.
I think it's what a wonderful life these people have at the expense of other things. Like in this case, it's selfishness and greed that is at the expense of respecting the dead.
Right,
or in other cases,
the selfishness and greed of the society, because the family is, as Tony mentioned,
but they're explicitly ignorant. Like, they don't ask the question. You don't ask, how did we get this land? You don't ask what happened. Like, you just kind of go, oh, I'm just going to pretend. And this is the case in suburbia. I live in suburbia. We don't ask about, like, where does the trash go? Oh, there's fracking somewhere over there. Oh, there's crime somewhere over there. Just as long as it's not in my backyard, I'm not going to worry about it. We're just blissfully ignorant of everything around us. And I think that's what this is. I mean, I like what Drew said, that it's this, the dream built on corpses. It's exactly right.
I think there is some of that.
I think they have to show you how great it is because they're going to drop a ghost story down on it like a ton of bricks. Like, this is the suburban ghost story, and I don't think that really existed before this movie. I mean, the only thing that is in recent vintage of this that I can think of is Nightmare on Elm Street, and that's a couple of years after this.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess what I'm really saying is that the cynicism isn't on display as much as eventually it will become. Like, it will eventually become, well, this has, I think, Drew put it very succinctly, that this has corpses at its roots. Like, there's something rotten underneath this American dream. But
I think the optimism versus the cynicism is actually, the two filmmakers that were involved with the genesis of this movie, or Spielberg and Hooper, we're seeing their two sensibilities slam up against each other.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was weird, like, rewatching it, I in my head, I had it more of a, railing altogether against suburbia, more like, like Elfman would eventually do. But I think in general, it shows you, like, this is American Dream, this is kind of what's at its roots, and, until the end where they find out how terrible it is, they're just trying to, like, hey, look what we did for our family, it was really hard. And now we have this, even though and then this eventually becomes rotten to the core, but not, not because they think like, oh no, this is how America turns out. It's just
and the family doesn't. I just think this is really, really important. I mean, if you think of like, something like Natural Born Killers, which says not only is suburbia rotten to the core, but the people who live in the suburbs are lying. And when the lights go out, the children are being molested, and everybody's crooked and everybody's wise. And that's not going on here. Yeah, there might be corpses underneath. There might be secrets that these people should have asked questions about. But in the end, these are our friends. They're good people, and we want them to get away. And spoiler, when they do get away at the end, we're happy for them.
And they do, to be honest, though, thinking about it, they do juxtapose the newly suburban to the people who have been around a while, who aren't, maybe the brightest neighbors.
The more lived in part.
The more lived in. Yes.
Neighbors are kind of like, and there's kind of suburban thing where they do the remote thing, which you can't do anymore. But at the time, one clicker was just a click.
Yeah, the technology is very interesting here. You have first of all, I love the fact that Spielberg or Hooper, whoever we want to say is the lead. So the next thing we're going to discuss is Hooper versus Spielberg. But I love the fact that the director here is just fine with the fact that Americans apparently could treat the television like a member of their own family. These guys have a TV in every single room. The TV dominates everything. They never turn it off. I'm talking before one of their kids gets literally sucked into one. It is never off. There's one in the kitchen. There's one in the master bedroom. There's one in the living room. It's always on. It's always making noise. And, they never would turn it off. And, the business of dealing with the neighbor is around how we're going to deal with the fact that everybody needs to be watching TV all the time. It's crazy.
But it's common. We have it in our family. Not in our house, but people in our family do that, and other people that we know, always have the TV on.
I was watching reruns of Cheers while working before I called in.
No, and I won't even argue with that.
We watch plenty of TV too.
No. Make no mistake. We watch a lot of TV, but I don't think I've ever seen in a movie before this one the ubiquity of TV. The fact that it's just everywhere. And the fact that it's 82 means that there are certain weirdnesses about the technology that are particular to the time, such as every night TV is eventually over and they play the national anthem, which I find is hilarious and totally true. And then it's static.
And they show all the different national statues.
Right, they go to the statues. Usually there were jet planes too. Mm-hmm. There'd be these you'd see the Air Force flying jets, and then you'd see all the monuments.
Well, that was the other thing is depending on what station you were on, they usually had a different one. So you kind of got used to whatever station you usually closed out the night with was a different. They're usually pretty similar, but
remember the Indian head video lineup thing for focusing and getting your colors right, and it was it had a bunch of little circles and stuff, and there was literally an Indian head on it, and because I remember this would appear in the morning. I would turn on the TV to watch Dennis the Menace or something, and before Dennis the Menace came on, there'd be this pattern slate, really. I guess
also
the technicians at the TV
also for a while, before static was on, it just was that piercing tone, which made you I'm not leaving the TV on. I'm not leaving it on static. It's just,
Or at least you're going to turn down the volume.
I once heard telephone conversations through the static. Not making this up. I was fiddling around.
Maybe that was ghosts.
It wasn't ghosts, because they were having a really stupid conversation.
Maybe it was ghosts having.
It was people having a.
It was the bourbon ghost.
Yes,
who had been there a while.
I was, all of a sudden I hear conversations, and I sort of fiddled with the UHF tuner, and I could hear people talking on the telephone. It was exactly the way they describe it in the movie Poltergeist, where it's an empty channel. It could pick up all kinds of things. And this was literally somebody's telephone conversation from in the neighborhood.
Or it was ghosts.
Right. Or it was ghosts,
Hey, some ghosts are probably inane,
Yeah, there's no reason why ghosts have to be interesting.
That's totally true. That's completely true.
Some people are boring in life. Maybe they'd still be boring in death.
Exactly.
They need another ghost to talk to and be boring with. That's the hilarious thing. Anyway, Spielberg versus Hooper. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
One other thing about the 80s-ness, one thing that always, this is, probably nitpicky of me, but so now when people show static, it's reminded me that when people show static, usually computer-generated static, and I think because I know what that looks like it's never. I wish people when they went to do static, and by the way, most TVs just turn blue now, which really bugs me as well because people
right.
start showing static, and you're like, yeah, if you're hooked to a cable box, it doesn't do that anymore. But people, what's funny is we still use that as shorthand. Like well after static is a thing, we use static as a shorthand. But I do wish when people went to do static, they wouldn't just use like the After Effects plugin, that they would actually go film some static somewhere, because it's maybe you can because you get too much video feedback. But I'm sure there's a way to do it, because I just or just recorded line out. Whenever I notice it, and it just reminded me when I saw this movie again, like this, because there's a certain even more randomness to the static of the 80s of these TVs. Also, I find it really, I just noticed whenever to heighten the intensity, whenever they show the static away from the TV, they have like a strobe light going. Even though in reality, you just kind of get a bluish light, like a corpsey light. You don't really get, there's not a strobe. But like they do it for this but it creates just this really awesome, intense look. Whenever she's facing away from the TV, there's like a strobe going at any given time to really enhance that this static is not, it's not your friend. It's, it will suck you to the TV.
The director really loves that strobe effect. That's for sure.
So back to your question of who the directors. So the deal is that Steven Spielberg was working on E.T., the extraterrestrial, and so he said, okay, I don't have time to direct this, so he hires Tobe Hooper, but then there's all these delays with E.T., so he ends up, and he also films E.T. like in the same neighborhood basically as this, and so he basically is like, well, I have nothing to do on E.T. right now, so I'm going to come over here and hang out and just go ahead and take over the movie, and so this is where you guys discuss who actually is the director of this film.
Yeah.
Well, the genesis of E.T. and Poltergeist is actually E.T. was originally going to be a horror film. And it was going to be called Night Skies, and the alien was going to be evil. And Spielberg took a lot of, because he didn't, at that point in his career, think that it was necessarily a good move for him to be making a scary movie.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So he took the elements of Night Skies and put them into what eventually became the Poltergeist screenplay. And, actually a lot of that happened because Spielberg, believe it or not, is a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He met with Tobe Hooper, who was also thinking about doing a ghost movie, and they started talking about The Haunting a lot.
So, and that's sort of how they led to this. But I mean, this seems to have become an obsession on Steven Spielberg's part. That he had a vision for what he wanted to do, but he hired a director. He hired not just a director, but a visionary director, the guy who made the Chainsaw Massacre. And so Tobe Hooper's no pushover. I mean, you can get off-the-shelf directors who will do sort of what your vision is. But he hired somebody who had his own thing. And then Steven Spielberg, when this movie came out, made a comment to Time magazine where he said, I'm not making this up. This is like nearly an exact quote. He goes, Tobe Hooper's not really a take charge kind of guy. So a lot of times when decisions needed to be made, I would make them. And the world just sort of sat back and watched Spielberg throw Tobe Hooper under the bus like this. And Spielberg had to backtrack and write a public letter of apology. I mean, I'm sure he had to, in so much as he wanted to. He probably. Well,
he got in trouble with the Directors Guild for that.
Yeah, right. So he wrote a thing, and he said, I put you through a lot, but this is your movie, and what have you. But the fact is, a lot of actors on the set said that they dealt with Steven Spielberg and not with Tobe Hooper.
But that's
Zelda Rubinstein said that Tobe Hooper was high all the time and was not even fit to direct traffic, let alone a film.
Right.
Which is horrible. But it stands to reason, though, and this is the thing, stylistically, while there is a lot of Spielberg stuff in this, and he is the producer and director, so no matter, who you think, if you are completely in the Tobe Hooper directed this camp, a guy who is both the money man and the screenwriter, there's going to be some of his sensibilities in the movie. But there's also, as we've been noting, even leading up to this point, a lot of Tobe Hooper. So, there's stuff in here that Spielberg by himself would not, to me, make those kind of choices. And I'm kind of the opinion that, maybe Tobe Hooper, left to his own devices, would not make a movie exactly like this. But, I have a very hard time believing that he didn't have some sort of directorial say-so.
Yeah, because remember, he made Salem's Lot as well. Oh, go ahead, Johnny.
By the way, I was just looking over, Quint from Ain't It Cool News did an interview with Zelda Rubinstein before she passed. And she says pointedly, I can tell you Steven directed all 6 days I was there. I only worked 6 days on the film, and Steven was there. Toby set up the shots, and Steven made the adjustments. He's like, you're not going to hear from me at Tobe Hooper. You'll hear it from Zelda, because that was my honest-to-God experience. She goes, I'm not a fan of Tobe Hooper.
The funny thing is, but if you think of the scenes that Zelda Rubinstein is in, and Zelda Rubinstein, for the listeners, plays the diminutive super clairvoyant who's brought in by the parapsychology team.
They're great.
She comes in towards the end.
She's famous for saying, "This house is clean."
Yes, and this her scenes are all the ones with all the crazy backlighting and the victorious kiss right in front of the flickering lights, just like in E.T. And I totally believe that that's all Spielberg just going nuts with his Spielberginess. But at the same time, Hooper is the guy who brought us, the floating kid in Salem's Lot and the time underneath the house in that movie. And so I think I'm with Drew. I think that there's probably a lot of handing off.
Well, not to mention that there are supposedly real skeletons at the end of this movie. I do not believe.
Not supposedly. Everything says that they were real because they were cheaper to buy real ones.
Spielberg wouldn't Spielberg certainly has his horror leanings, and he's made some horrific movies. We did Jaws last year, but Spielberg is never that ghoulish, even when he's in horror mode.
Yeah.
Like Tobe Hooper. I mean, we just did Texas Chainsaw Massacre back in November. Tobe Hooper is that ghoulish, and Tobe Hooper. Because I was did a lot of reading on this. Tobe Hooper actually did an interview back in 2008 where they brought this up again, and he was all like, "I don't understand why I'm still being asked about this." Spielberg and I collaborated. Spielberg had a very heavy hand in the collaboration that was above maybe a normal screenwriter's sort of collaborate. Not normally would a screenwriter or a producer be treated that way. Frankly, you're in the 80s. You're in. It's 1982. Steven Spielberg is the guy that's putting up the money for your movie. He's the guy that wrote the screenplay. Even if you're the guy that wrote the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is, a classic of its kind, you're going to let Mr. Raiders of the Lost Ark have a lot of input in your movie. That's just my opinion. I feel like too many people probably ignore the Hooperisms because it does I'm not even going to deny, it does very much look like a Steven Spielberg movie. But also, I just said this before we started recording, Gremlins also looks a lot like a Steven Spielberg movie, but nobody's saying that Spielberg directed that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, we had another thing, think about Nightmare Before Christmas, which, of course, was not directed by Tim Burton, but certainly gets associated with Tim Burton because I think isn't that the case?
His hand, his hand, it's Henry Selick, but his hand as producer allowed that movie to be made.
Yes.
I think we talked about
and
it.
his sensibilities and his designs are all over it.
Yeah, of course. But Selleck, says you can tell like he wishes that he got more credit for it. Just as a creator, when you do good work like that, and people go, "Oh, that's the Tim Burton thing," and he's like, but I also, know that he acknowledged exactly how much, how it got made, and without Burton, it wouldn't have. He knows how it works out, and I think, Tobe Hooper is probably the same way, and definitely I think it's a lot more collaborative, or I think there's a lot more Tobe Hooper in the movie than people might genuinely think.
Even the use of the way the national anthem is used at the beginning feels very Tobe Hooper. I always get, when I'm having this discussion with horror fans, over the several years now, because this has been a long debated thing. The thing that people always say is, "Oh, Tobe Hooper only made one good movie, and that's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre." And I'm always like, "Did you never see Salem's Lot? Did you never see Eaten Alive? Did you never see I'm sorry, even Life Force? You want to debate it. It's not a perfect movie, but it's competently made.
It's absurd, but that just means, and that's why there's so much readiness to imagine Spielberg directing this movie entirely, and relegating Tobe Hooper to some kind of secretary or something, is that people knew Raiders and they knew Close Encounters, but they didn't. Tobe Hooper didn't really raise to the same level of awareness. So there's like a natural snobbishness that people are ready to accept. Now,
Spielberg is a better director than Tobe Hooper. I'll come out and say it.
No, I think that's fair to say. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Spielberg did give us Saving Private Ryan. But Spielberg said, look, I read this wonderful interview with him where he goes, "I really loved this project, and I should have directed it. And I was a jackass to the guy who was directing it. And in the future, if there's a project like this, I'm just gonna direct it myself instead of hiring somebody and then making their life a living hell." and that's a wonderfully self-aware thing for him to say. That's hopefully what 30 years go by, you learn some things, and that's what Spielberg got.
I don't think this is going to be an argument that's ever going to be satisfied.
No, we should move on.
Yeah.
But
this is something that's going to be debated until Poltergeist is faded from memory, essentially.
Yes. My question is, when this reboot or whatever it is comes out, will it become a part of that tradition, or will it fade from memory and people will still remember the '82 version? And
Well, the proof will be in the pudding.
That's for sure, man. I've noticed I haven't watched the trailers for the new movie because I try to avoid trailers, honestly, because I feel like they just ruin films now. I've really come around to this point where I don't know. I think trailers are a problem with movies. But the posters for the new Poltergeist feature this clown, and I think that's we should. Well, I'm going to skip right to it, and if we're skipping around, I apologize. But I'm annoyed at the ubiquity of this clown. I feel so. What this is in the middle of this movie, the boy, the son, has a stuffed clown doll that he is afraid of, and that he has sitting in his room, and he's afraid of it at night. And so he does some really great stuff where he throws a jacket onto it, and later in the film, he actually battles with the clown because the clown becomes possessed. I don't understand why this is such a powerful image for people. What is the damn thing about the clown?
For one, they have the whole bit of business where they say it knows what you're afraid of. So the boy is facing his fear. And two, it's like when we were talking about it, man. A lot of people are just afraid of clowns.
Well, and yeah, Steven Spielberg was super afraid of clowns and of creepy trees. So that's why it's in there. But I think the clowns are scary, man. Yeah.
I mean, this is a movie that's from the same decade that gave us Chucky and Puppet Master. I mean, people are afraid of dolls.
I think this is a wonderful, beautiful movie, and I can find almost no flaws in it. So even this is a matter of taste, and certainly not a flaw. But I just find that to be cliched. I mean, I just find it.
But was it a cliche at that point?
I have no idea.
I don't think so. I don't think Evil Clown is a cliche. I think Evil Clown is a trope.
Yeah.
Well, give me more on that.
What now?
Tell me more about the way you would distinguish between and I'm not yanking your chain. I just literally want to understand.
It's an archetype. It's an archetype. I mean, it's an archetype. I mean, people, it's like saying, "Oh man, ghosts."
Yeah.
You know what I'm bored.
You're right.
And actually, fair enough. I actually just got through saying I was bored of ghosts, but they are a thing. It's a thing that people fall back on. It's again, it's an archetype. It's something.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love
just a few weeks ago. Okay, I will use this, and I swear I'm not going to turn this into a launch pad to talk about DC movies. But when they revealed the picture of the Jared Leto Joker for a few, I guess about a week or so back now, the internet just went frothing at the mouth for 2 days straight. Yeah. And the reason why that is, and I think this is, I believe, the reason why I believe that is because by putting all these tattoos all over the Joker, he looks less like a clown, and therefore is less frightening.
I think, I don't know, man. My big thing was okay, he has tattoos, but it looked like fan art. The tattoos came from were basically from Joker T-shirts and Joker posters you've seen. So it didn't look like
one
Joker.
Was from the cover of the Killing Joke.
Yeah, the ha is from the cover of a Joker comic. It looks like somebody who's cosplaying the Joker.
That's not really my point, though. I'm talking about clown.
I understand, but yes.
And the way
but I think
particularly
less about the clown and more about that it was just a really stupid. I mean, hey, it got people talking about the Joker and Suicide Squad, so mission accomplished.
The publicity side actually worked, but
you're saying that by making him look like
an employee of the hot topic, there's an archetypalness. There is something that people respond to about that visual, and whatever you want to say about the clown in this movie and the way it's used in this movie, that is something a lot of people, and I'm in the age group that really grew up with this movie. There's a lot of people are really just terrified of that doll, so that's something they carry with them. I am not one of those people. I'm not afraid of clowns, but I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The clown thing is
so.
Scary. I think maybe it was scary younger. I think it's just the fact that the crazy inanimate object is now animate is freaky. And it is, I mean, the clown parts are actually pretty scary, especially when you realize that
they are.
But the thing that bugs me, I got to say, about this is that the clown is so scary that why is he there? Why does he have that clown? Why does he allow his
the
clown's
face does contort. It doesn't look super duper scary.
But what I'm saying is, why does that kid have that clown? He clearly is terrified by it. Why
you were never given a toy you don't like by your parents?
Yeah, usually it's a parent or aunt or uncle or somebody, and I don't like that clown. Well, you got to get your aunt gave it to you. You can't throw it away. Whatever.
But you can put it in your closet. You could whatever.
Well, if it's out of the closet.
You're totally right.
And the tree is the other thing. It really bugs me a lot. I mean, it's really a ridiculous amount that it bugs me that they didn't ever close the damn curtain. I was like, why can't you close the curtain if the tree is so dang scary? Just close the curtain.
I mean, the answer is much more memorable.
Have you ever had a scary tree outside your house? Because let me tell you, the shadow is scarier than just looking at the freaking tree.
You're right. The shadow is scarier. That's a good point.
You close the shades, and you've got, you don't know what the tree... You leave the shades open, you kind of know what the tree is doing, even if the tree is scary. You look at the shadow, you don't even know what's going on with the tree at that point. You can't tell. that crap is scary.
I totally
That's
had
how
to be
it
like
is.
that. Yep.
I saw a movie where
The
a
tree
was
to me is
jealous
much
of
more
Jonas.
memorable than the doll.
Yeah,
The tree-
I
the
totally
tree
agree.
is.
And the tree is also where if it had just been the doll, the parents could go, I don't know what you're doing with the doll. Quit playing with the doll. The fact that when
Right.
a tree tries to eat your child is the point where you're like, yeah, it's time to go.
That.
Like,
There's
no
denying
ignoring any of that. I mean, well, it's
Right.
followed up by the TV eating their daughter, but there's no point at this
talk
point.
about
Where
I gotta say, I love the attitude that the family has at first about it. Like the mom is just like
the mom
super
is hilarious.
excited by
Okay,
it.
so let's back up before we get to that, Jason.
Plot
Yeah. So what happens is we open with the little girl. The whole movie opens with the little girl talking to the TV and saying, "I can't hear you. Talk louder." And she starts yelling, and everybody comes and sees her talking to the TV, and it's kind of like, okay, that's weird. Then there's all the storm business and the creepy tree and the creepy doll, and so then they're like in the parents' room after the storm has scared them into hiding in their parents' bed, and the little girl again is talking to the TV. The TV, some electric energy comes out of the TV and kind of bores a hole in the wall above the parents' headboard, and the little girl and everything starts to shake like it's an earthquake, and the little girl says to everybody, that's the famous line, "They're here," and they think it's an earthquake, but nobody else felt the earthquake. So then the next day, the mom's asking the little girl, like, who's here? And she says, the TV people. And then all this weird activity starts to happen where the boy's glass breaks, his fork and spoon bend, chairs are moving around by themselves, and finally, mom can't deny it when the chairs have been moving away from the tables. She's kind of like, the kids are messing with me. But then the chairs, she turns around, turns back. The chairs are now in this pyramid on top of the table in this like awesome balanced pyramid.
Now stop there because Drew had a comment about this. And we should stop and talk about this. Okay,
right.
So you are the housewife and you got a little girl at home, and now crazy shit starts going down in your house.
Yeah.
And Drew, you were saying about their attitude about how they handle it.
She's excited about
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like they're at Six Flags, It's,
right.
And I think there's something very, we're Reagan's America, at this point. There is something very, like the cockiness of that, to me, is great.
She actually tells him when he comes home. She's like, "Okay, remember how we used to be open-minded? You used to be open-minded, and try to get in touch with the open-minded part of you, and watch how cool this is." And she shows him that there's a spot in the kitchen where if you put something there, it'll move by itself across the kitchen, including human beings. Like the people would slide across the kitchen. And she just thinks that's the coolest thing ever. She's jumping up and down gleefully like a child, just shrieking. It is great.
Yeah. But the husband, he at this, I like how they handle this supernatural stuff, the characters, because he's like, I mean, he literally, he seems to think, maybe it's magnetism, maybe there's something wrong with the way the house is laid out, and but it's very soon that they actually go next door to the annoying neighbor and try to ask him if weird things have been going on. And that's when they realize they can't really talk to outsiders because the stuff going on in their house is unique to them and very strange. And that, I think, will play off a little bit later when stuff gets really bad, because part of me was like, why don't they call the police? I'm not saying it would work to call the police. I'm like, normally in a movie like this, strange things start happening.
No, if anything, calling the police would put them in danger because they would think that they did something to their kid.
Oh, absolutely. No.
Well,
I know.
And Ghostbusters was a few years away, so they didn't have anybody to call.
What did you say?
I said Ghostbusters was a few years away, so I didn't have anybody to call.
Well, she actually says that. She actually says, I looked in the phone book and just what is it? What did she say? Like disturbances?
Yeah, there's no listing under that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really funny.
But my point is, the movie very wisely avoids what would have been an annoying plot for them to go to the police explain that their daughter is missing, and then have to deal with suspicion about that. They don't do that. Likewise, later on, when their daughter turns up missing, I don't know what the hell they tell their grandmother.
Yeah, I'm wondering what they tell their grandmother, too, when they send the little boy off. By the way, they stick their boy in a cab.
Right.
Send him off to Grandma's house.
And Craig T. Nelson is pretending he has the flu.
Yes.
Right, but
he looks so terrible because he's so stressed out.
Yes, that's right.
But he's got all the camera equipment in the house, so his boss who comes over is like, what do you got going on here? Like, what kind of business? Like, he's suddenly thinking that he's going to
Right, he's on crunch, and that's why he looks so terrible. He's staying up all night software programming.
Or making movies, making porn. Who knows what he's doing?
I love the scene where Craig T. The parapsychologists are talking about how they recorded a Matchbox car move over a period of 7 hours, and Craig T. Nelson's like, and then he opens up the door, and there's all the toys being telekinetically tossed around, and there's like a great Mego Incredible Hulk that's flying around through the air, and
there's a record that's playing with a compass, like a compass is making the record play as it flies through the air.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how well this movie is organized, because when they make it, so just to skip really quickly over the plot points that we'll come back to, but very, very quickly, whoever it was that was talking to the little girl, Carol Ann, creates a distraction involving the tree trying to eat the kid and sucks the little girl into another dimension. Boom. Now we're into the second act, because now what they got to do is figure out how to get their daughter back. And so he heads out to, it's just like in Suspiria, where she goes to the university to talk to somebody. In this case, Craig T. Nelson goes to the University of California at Irvine, which apparently has, I don't think in real life, but apparently has like a bunch of parapsychologists who are...
Well, there was a time when that actually, like, there was all kinds of just like, hey, we have a department that does, blah, blah, blah. Or the perception, I guess, was that who knows what goes on at college, but if you go to a liberal enough college, you're going to, this is the kind of stuff that somebody's wasting our money on, It's kind of more how it usually plays out.
I mean, think about it. They don't bore us with the setup of this. They don't show us, like, him going, maybe we should call a university. It's such a skillful movie. It just cuts to him sitting at a table at the University of California, smoking a cigarette, looking sallow in the face, and telling his story to a bunch of people. I mean, God, I could learn so much about, like, get rid of these extra scenes. Get rid of these conversations. Get to the scene that matters. It's just amazing, to watch how well this is telling this story. Okay, so we grab these parapsychologists, we drag them back to the house, and very quickly the parapsychologists sort of move in to try to record what's going on, and also to try to debunk it in the process, because not that they don't think it's real, but they're being scientists, and they want to make sure that there's not some sort of weird scam being pulled on. Where some of the crazy scares in the middle of this movie come in. Does anybody want to explain the weird stuff that happens to these parapsychology techs?
Well, I mean, the poor guy. What's his name? Harvey or something? It's not Harvey. It's
Marty.
Marty. Thank you. Oh my gosh, poor Marty. So okay. You've got Marty and
Ryan.
Thank you. So Ryan is kind of more cool, and he seems more mature, even though all he's ever seen before now is the Matchbox car moving over 7 hours. But he seems kind of to take it all in stride and be cool with it. And but Marty is a little more, more nervous. So anyway, he's also starving. Like, I think he must smoke pot as well, because he's hungry all the time. So he's eating like an entire bag of chips. Then it's the middle of the night, everybody else is asleep. He's like, I'm going to go fix myself something to eat after he's eaten a bag of chips. And he decides
I have no sympathy for this deadbeat. He stole a whole steak.
He's going to eat the steak, and he takes the steak out of the fridge and puts it on the counter. And this is, like Tony was talking about the practical effects. This is the kind of thing where like the thing with the chair in the kitchen where they move the chair across the floor, and the thing with the steak are just done by attaching wires to the bottom of these items and having somebody underneath the counter, underneath the floor, just drag the thing like a puppet, just drag it across the counter, just drag it across the floor. Simple effects. And so they grab this like steak to start slithering across the counter and then busts out into maggots. And so the guy's like kind of freaking out. He goes in to the bathroom to splash his face with water, and suddenly he looks in the mirror, and suddenly he perceives that his face is falling apart also, and he starts just like pulling it, which, by the way, the effect is actually Steven Spielberg's hands pulling the face off of this whatever dummy I guess it is. But his face just is coming apart, and he's like just pulling chunks of flesh off of it. It's disgusting. But then, of course, it's not real, and he's able to, like, he realizes
that was hardcore, man. When I saw that in the movie theater, I was like, good Lord, the idea of somebody tearing their cheek off, I mean, that was just like insanely violent.
So subsequently, Marty is out of there, and the parapsychologist informs Joe Beth Williams that he will not be returning.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
but
she's your own
coming back.
Yeah.
She's coming back. Well, anyway, so Ryan is kind of rocking out while all this paranormal stuff is going on. He's not even paying attention to the cameras as like the whole I don't know, crazy spiritual stuff is coming out of the upstairs and down the stairs, and he's not even noticing. And Marty's like, check it out. It's like ghosts all coming downstairs.
Yes.
So then everybody wakes up for that and gets to see all these beautiful lights and everything coming out.
Yeah. And that's actually sort of the moment when they give us some rules, because Dr. Lesh, who is the psychology professor who runs the team, she sort of becomes friends with Jo Beth Williams, the mom, and she gives us, in the guise of dialogue that some people believe, she lays out what basically the rules for the universe of Poltergeist are, which is that, people die, they go into the lights, everything's better there. But some people don't, and they linger around, and they get confused, or they get mad, and that's what these are. And so these lights that are being seen moving around the house are displaced spirits who should be going into the light but aren't. But we don't yet know what's going on with Carol Ann, like why the thing with Carol Ann. She's like, I'm going to go away, and I'm going to come back with help. And so they... I
have to say,
yeah,
even though setting up the rules is a necessary part of any horror film, I'm a bit troubled that the parapsychologist seems to have all this knowledge. It's not treated as theoretical. It's treated as fact. And yet, like, if she knows all this stuff, why does she have to be a parapsychologist?
Well, she says some people believe, and then goes into. But you're right. It's a whisper thin distinction, and it's you're right. I mean, it's just because it would sound absurd for her to say, well, Robbie, when people die, they go into a light, and all the answers to all the questions are there. That would just sound too wacky. You would need a priest to say that, and none of these guys are priests.
I would have been okay with the psychic saying that stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, like, this woman's an investigator. So, like, that by its very definition means she does not have all the answers. That's why she's exploring. And, I don't know, I'm troubled by that.
Maybe that's why she brings in Zelda Rubinstein. With Robbie, the best she can do is say some people believe. But I'm going to go away and I'm going to bring somebody back.
Well, even in The Conjuring, they go, they're like, hey, we can only cover so much. And then they go get more help. Yes,
that's right. That's totally right. And they're like sending away letters to the Catholic Church and stuff like that in that one. We get more rules when Zelda Rubinstein shows up. And she's the dwarf. I can't remember the name of the character. I'm so...
Isn't it Cassandra or something like that?
Oh, it's Tangina. The weirdly named Tangina. So, yes, Tangina... who is this wonderful small woman with a southern accent and is just delightful. She has these great big glasses and this sort of frou-frou silk dress. And, you know so much about, it's such a perfectly created character. And I can only imagine that there's no way that all of this character was on the page, because there's so much specificity going on. The accent, the dress, the fact that she's psychic, those glasses, the bun hair, and the fact that she's a little person, all of it. This is one of the best envisioned characters I've ever seen. She's great. Anyway, she very quickly comes in, and she doesn't go, some people think, she just goes, here's the deal.
Well, and then she's psychic. And so for some reason at this point is when Craig T. Nelson decides to be a cynic, which I don't understand where that comes from.
Right.
But he's suddenly like, oh, you're psychic. I see how it is. So he's like, she says, what? She asks a question, and he answers her telepathically, and she's like, I'm speaking with the living here. And he's like, oh, I was answering her telepathically, but she didn't understand me. And, of course, she's in the other upstairs, and she goes, no, I heard you. I just don't like trick questions.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, well, I don't even know what the word is, but, I mean, he judges her because she's a dwarf. I mean, no, he makes an over-the-rainbow reference. I mean, he thinks that it's not worth having her around because she's a small person. It's crazy, but that appears to be now. He's stressed out, so we'll cut him some slack.
All right.
Anyway,
she is right though. It doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense that this is the point he should. Because I mean, frankly, there's ghosts in your house. Like there's no doubt. If for whatever reason you're uncertain at this point, you're a world-class moron. So
I don't think he's uncertain about spirituality.
I'm saying,
he doesn't trust this lady.
Right, but why is this the thing that he has trouble with?
Yeah, I hate to say it, it's because she's a dwarf.
Yeah.
That's what it is. He thinks that, I don't think he's thought it through, really, but it comes down to, I don't think a dwarf is going to be able to help us. So, anyway, but what she says is, look, whatever it is, and she doesn't know what that is, she goes, whatever weird stuff is going on to keep these spirits around here, they have glommed on to your daughter. And they're attracted to the light that she is because she's very unusual and is a terrible distraction from the light that they need to go to. And there is an evil being, which she calls the Beast, that is deliberately kind of holding Carol Ann close and distracting all these wandering spirits.
Yeah, and she says that the spirits don't know that they're dead, and so they're holding on to her because they're tied as living. But what they need to do actually is go to the light and cross over.
Yeah.
And they need Carol Ann to show them the way, but this Beast is not going to let that happen.
Yeah. So, and I think it's a good time for us to go ahead and talk about the solution of this movie, because instead of going plot-wise, but just talk about the solution, because I need you guys to help me see if this makes sense. Because it looks like, so first of all, the solution basically is that, Carol Ann is in there. The ghosts are distracted by her. If they're going to go into the light, they need to go into the light. And most of the business of the film is in rescuing Carol Ann from the afterlife. But as far as the ghosts are concerned, the ghosts are all right. The ghosts appear to be angry because their tombstones were disturbed. But that doesn't make any sense.
Well, also, it's not just the tombstones removed. It's they built a whole suburban outrageous thing on top of it. Like it's
on top of their bodies.
I mean, it's fairly. One thing is disrespectful. The other thing is like this has happened. Again, it's true. It's the dark part of America. Like this is the thing we're doing, and so, but you also gotta believe that if the Beast is there, that there's something to them being goaded as well. Like this
Can
Beast
we pause,
thing
by
is
the way, for a second, and talk about this being with the fact that this is based on a real life thing that happened here in Denver, which is that the city was too cheap to actually move the bodies, and so they just built this park called Cheeseman Park over the bodies, and didn't move the bodies, they just moved the tombstones. And so now there's apparently all these hauntings and things that happen in this park, and that's why Spielberg wanted to do this idea, is because he thought, wow, that's so freaking creepy that people would just do this because they're too cheap to respect the dead.
So, and I can dig that.
The whole scene where Craig T. Nelson's boss, he's concerned that he's trying to that he's going to leave the company because he's their best realtor, and he takes him out. This is where we're going to build phase 4, and it's going to be great, and there's going to be jacuzzis and all these things that people want in the 1980s, but there's a cemetery here, and we're gonna pay to have it moved, and it's the guy from Return of the Living Dead, which is the thing that I never noticed until now for some reason. It's
yes.
Talking to him.
He's a well-known. He's like the ultimate character actor. This guy plays smarmy bosses in like practically everything. Did
you see where he was the spokesperson for what company was it? He was a spokesperson for something, and people were so mad. Like the public was so mad that he was. Let's see. It says he was the commercial spokesperson. I think it's him, right? James Karen, is that the same guy?
Yeah, James Karen, yeah.
He is the commercial spokesperson for Pathmark Supermarkets, and he received hate mail from people saying they would never shop there again because of how his character treated the freelance.
Oh, my gosh.
That just cracked me up.
Well, the idea that they would just build I'm failing to find the words here. It is just so supremely creepy. And, at the same time, I love the cockiness, because the cockiness is so 80s. He's like, well, it's not ancient Indian burial ground. What's the big deal,
Yeah. I like that ancient, but a lot of people think now, by the way, I remembered it, that it is an ancient Indian burial ground.
That's what I thought. I thought it was that, and then I was saying that, and then I was like, oh, wait, it's not a...
Yeah, that was the way I remembered it as well.
But that's a trope from another... I can't remember what it is. It's a trope from something else.
The Shining. It's from The Shining.
But I also like... I like the part... another thing that's kind of interesting that kind of sets us apart is in a lot of movies you might have him tell the dad, hey, and, you're our best salesman. The dad would go, okay, well, I'm not going to tell my family. In this case, he goes, wait, you're telling me this in confidence, but this is so not cool. Like, none of this is good. You let me move my family here? Like, I was expecting, the suburban thing. I wanted all of it. Yeah. And now you're telling me that my own company has just ruined all of this. I've got my daughter in TVs, a tree is attacking my son, and you didn't tell me anything. When were you going to tell me this kind of thing? And I think the way that plays out is pretty awesome.
It's actually mixed up, because remember, when he takes him out, the boss takes him out to show him the new phase, and he's trying to entice him and saying, we can build your house up here. Then he says, oh, yeah, we moved all the bodies, we moved everything. And so he's like, okay, I guess that's okay. It's not until the end.
It's not clear. He's not clear on whether they moved the bodies or not.
No, but he's like, well, okay.
Craig Nelson does seem troubled by
He does. But not enough that
but he goes, I guess it's okay if they just moved a couple miles.
Well, and bear in mind that this is, I think, to Tony's point, I think this is where some of that critique is coming in, the notion that we can be good people and we can live in our houses, but this is a country that slaughtered all of the Native Americans in order to have this land. That bad things led to the good life that you have.
Right, exactly.
And just like in this case, it's the shorthand of bad things is we're going to just save a lot of money by buying. We don't respect the past. We're going to buy a graveyard and move it, and we don't even know how bad it gets. In the universe of Poltergeist, the fact that they didn't move the bodies is the extra bit of terrible that causes. But okay, so to go back, so what I'm trying to figure out is why are these spirits who are obsessed with the beast is keeping the spirits around. What I don't understand though is why the spirits would have been buried a hell of a lot longer ago than when this company built this
Not necessarily, because remember, when there's at one point there's like jewelry and watches and stuff falling through the ceiling, and they actually say this watch is only a few years old.
Yeah.
So it could be that these are all bodies that.
So it's only the recently dead, but that still takes a pretty firm stance that the recently dead stick around for a while. And apparently a long while.
Or maybe they come back. Like maybe they were in heaven and then they got sucked back when their tombs got moved.
Yeah, none of that makes any sense.
It doesn't. You're right.
What does make sense is if the beast is just making puppets out of everything. In other words,
also that it's not every spirit in there. I mean, they kind of go through that. They're like, hey, some spirits get lost, and he's basically taking advantage of any of these lost spirits, and that's. I guess in this, that's how he plies his trade.
Yeah, you're right.
In fairness, they do get into the who the beast is in Poltergeist too. But I mean, I don't believe that they had any of that mapped out. But
I'm going to ignore that for a moment. And I haven't even seen Poltergeist 2, so I have no idea what I'm in for when it comes.
You've never seen it?
I've never seen it.
Oh wow!
Oh man, I can't wait.
Wow.
Then. Oh, I saw that one in the theater. Freaked.
Oh, God, no, I saw that one. I remember it, because that's actually where I got confused, because I forgot, I was mixing them up as one movie. I guess I should say this for next week, but I'll just say I remember when I saw it. I remember when I saw it.
Not to pique your interest or to spoil you, Jason, but if you like Zelda Rubinstein, I think you will like the actor that they found to play the embodiment of evil in Poltergeist 2.
Oh, man, that guy. Wow.
Sweet. Okay. No, I remember Julia being obsessed with Lloyd Benson because she thought he was like the evil dude in Poltergeist 2. But I have not seen it.
Man,
so there's one more thing I want to talk about, and then we'll probably have to get final thoughts and wrap up. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is all of the business, the middle of this movie. Or rather, really, I guess, Act 3 begins just almost religiously. So it's not the middle, it's the Act 3. It's the big plan that comes in, like, right 30 minutes before the movie is over with. Zelda Rubinstein says the line. She actually goes, now let's go get your daughter. And she signals the beginning of Act 3 with such, like, clockwork precision that I'm just amazed at how well this thing is written. And then they start this whole shtick involving ropes and throwing things through. They've got a portal figured out, that there's a way into the world and there's a way back out. And this, it's so moving, all of it, the business of the fact that these parents are going to go after their daughter. And to me,
the mother is really the one that goes after the daughter. I think that's very important.
And we've seen that the mother is, the spirit of the baby moves through the mother, and so she smells her on her. And all that is so amazing, and it brings tears to my eyes, right? And what amazes me, though, is whenever I talk to people, hey, Poltergeist, they always want to talk to me about the damn clown. And they never seem to be remotely interested in this astonishing Orpheus-like story about going into the underworld to rescue a family member, which is just like, it blows my mind. This is such a profound piece. Have I preached too much? I'm sorry.
No. I think to me what I like about it though is from somebody who saw this as a kid, and I think this may vary from child to child and what their relationship with their parents. Like, I love my dad, right? I love my dad. But my mom was God. And, like, the fact that it's the mother that goes in to me, like, kind of really says a lot. Like that's really what speaks to me every time I see this at that particular point in the movie. And, it's kind of, dare I say, almost feminist considering when this movie came out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That the mom would, it's not the dad who's going to do the saving, it's the mom because she's the one who will do anything. She's the closest. There's a feminist thing, there's a non-feminist thing, depending on your point of view. Yeah, Tony, you were going to say something.
No, I just think again, it's nice also when, you have a family trying to, just really trying to do whatever they can to solve this problem, and especially the mom. It's refreshing. It's something I think why it resonates again. It's not just people like there's a lot of horror movies where it just seems like no one's competent. Like,
and everybody's
and I think
secretly
the stakes are higher whenever everybody's trying to do everything they can, and they're just up against. The reason it's supernatural is how do you contend with this?
Yeah.
And I think those are, when you think like to The Exorcist, to all the stuff that stays, stuff that we've talked about, I think that's more believable than I think a lot of more cynical, where people are terrible and that's why bad things happen.
Well, and it's your child. What would you do?
Sure.
Craig T. Nelson is not portrayed as unemotional or incompetent. Like he is physically, literally an anchor right here, which is also kind of symbolic. But I just love the fact that it's the mom that actually goes into the hell dimension or whatever the hell you want to call it.
And his reaction when they come through and they're not breathing, and just how, like, he's the dad. He's doing the dad thing. Like anybody, like depending on your relationship with your parents, like Drew said, but most people I think will get that, the way it all plays out. Like even if that's not what it was in your life, you kind of understand that. Like you can watch that on the screen, and it feels really genuine, and it really, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where that resonates a lot. Another reason why it holds up is it feels like, it feels pretty real, with the exception of I don't think most of us have, had to rescue our family from crazy
but
ghosts.
It's a perfect fantasy in a sense, or what Julie and I have always called catastrophic fantasies, where you imagine that all this terrible stuff goes down and it gives you a chance to do all these amazing things.
Right. To me, I think the little girl, what's the actress's name that plays the little 5-year-old girl?
I actually don't recall.
Her name
Carol
is...
Ann. I don't remember her name.
It's Heather something.
Yeah, Heather. Heather O'Rourke, who, by the way, dies 6 years later of cancer, and Dominic Dunn, who dies of being murdered. That same the year that it comes out. That's part of the curse that Jason was like, let's not talk about the curse. And I'm like, no, we have to talk about the curse.
No.
But we can talk about the curse a little bit more in a second. But anyway, Heather O'Rourke is such a great little actress, and she was just discovered eating at the commissary with her mom, and Steven Spielberg was like, we need you, and she's so great. And I think. Yes, she's great when she's creepy. She's great with they're here. She's great with the mommy, where are you? But especially just being unconscious.
Yeah.
In like the tub, because when they come through, they're unconscious because he pulled them out too soon. Like he overreacted because he freaked out. The dad did.
It's just the first ghost movie that makes a really heavy use of slime this way. I know
ectoplasm.
This is a few years. Again, this is a few years before Ghostbusters. So
right. Yeah. So they have the ectoplasm, yeah. So anyway, they're covered in this, basically it's like amniotic fluid at this point. They're put in the tub, which I don't understand the point of the tub really, but whatever. They put in a tub, and the mom and she's gotten Carol Ann. They're both unconscious, and so they put them in the tub, and while they kind of try to wait for them, nobody actually tries to resuscitate them in any way, but they encourage them to come back to life. And so mom comes back to life first. And then they kind of just, wait for the little girl. Again, why not resuscitate them? I don't know. But the way that she looks, it's like a fetus. It really is like a fetus. And she's just like, she's so still, and her mouth is her lips are pursed, and her eyes are closed, and you just kind of like, she feels like a little baby, and you just really want her. It's like that first breath that babies take when they come out, and you're just like, come on, breathe, because now you're not, the amniotic fluid is not the thing that's supporting you anymore. It's just like that. It's the birth of these people, after this experience. But I think it's really amazing. I think it's a really beautiful moment. I think that little girl is amazing. Yeah, of course, as a mom. I mean, I've been listening to you guys and thinking, I don't know. I feel like as the mom, I'm supposed to say something here, but I just don't even know what to say because, I mean, you can't even begin to express what that's like to have your baby be at risk. And, even just a small amount that I've had it where suddenly I don't know where one of my kids is, and I'm like, holy crap, my kid is, and just the way your heart races, there's nothing like it, so just to have something like that happen. Like the moment for me in the film when my heart breaks as a mom is when what did you say her name was? The lady who's helping Tangina is saying, she's with the beast, and then Carol Ann, like she's like, you've got to get her away from there, and they're just like, I mean, just the terror of that your baby is at risk, and there's somebody who wants to do harm to her is so, it's just unspeakable. You can't even imagine something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's all.
No, it was great.
So now let's talk about the curse.
Can we
talk
save
about
the curse for the second? Because we have been on for a while, and I know that it might make more sense to touch on it in the next movies.
All right, fine.
We will.
There is supposedly a curse. We are acknowledging it. Jason has to talk about it next episode.
We will discuss it in the next episode.
It's real.
And I'm not. I will try not. I will try to take. I will try to take.
Some people think Some people think that the curse is because they used real skeletons.
Right.
As long as it doesn't.
I will try to take every hint of derision out of my voice.
As long as it doesn't spread to people who talk about it.
Yeah.
On a podcast, I'm all right.
Like the Scottish play, right? Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Okay.
You mean Macbeth?
I mean Macbeth.
That's what
I'm on you. Curses. I don't believe in curses.
Have you ever seen Blackadder? You guys?
Yeah.
No, I know you have. There's one. How did it go, Jason? Where he was like kept saying.
He just continued to. He was hanging out with these two actors who kept having to jump up and down and do this stupid thing.
Yeah, they would do this crazy thing to try to
find ways to say it. Where they'd go, you didn't mention the Scottish play, and he'd go, oh, you mean Macbeth, and then they'd have to do it again.
And they're like, no, you can't ever say that. And he's like, what, Macbeth? And they're like, no. And then they do their thing, and he's like, I don't understand. What's wrong with Macbeth? And they'd be like, no.
Yes.
So funny.
Okay. All right.
So Jason doesn't believe in curses, and Julia does.
Yes.
This is what we've established.
I couldn't tell you whether Julia believes.
This should be.
Let's just say this. I'm open to anything. This is the thing. Pretty much.
This should be good. I'm looking forward to this.
I can't wait. And once again, I promise to be as respectful.
Wow, you can't even say that without like sounding even like slightly mean.
I promise to use respectful some crap that's stupid. Is that tone of voice?
You're far too cynical, Jason Henderson.
It is possible. Okay. I want to get people's final thoughts because obviously, look, man, we could pick a whole bunch of thesis points and just talk about each of these things because there's so much more. There's ratings, like movie ratings, and there's like, again, we could look at it from a feminist perspective, and we could look at it from, what it is to be a Republican in 1982. Just so much crap. But we don't have time. And so let's get our final thoughts, and then we'll come around for endorsements. So we were Julia, Tony, Drew, and then whatever, if I have anything left to say. Julia, final thoughts, Poltergeist.
I am excited that we did this movie. There's a few little things that annoy me, like I say, but I think actually Tony did help me with the one where I was hung up on the curtain thing, and I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. Actually, having it closed might be worse. But there's a couple of things, like the fact that Carol Ann tears apart her wicker headboard, but then at the end it's back together again. Little things like that, which I'm sure there's a million of goofs in every movie, but for some reason in this one they bugged me. But I think that it's a great film. I think it's got some beautiful moments. I think it's got some scary moments. I think it's got some poignant moments. And I'm excited that we're doing the series, and I can't wait for next week for Jason to see Poltergeist 2 because it's awesome also.
Okay. Awesome. Sweet. All right. Then, Tony, final thoughts, Poltergeist?
Yeah, I really like the movie. I think it holds up really well. even if people, I think new people not of the 80s generation may scoff at some of the antiquated bits from the 80s, but I think it still holds up really, really well in the same way, things are just of an era, the technology. And it's kind of sad that, what's probably going to happen with a new Poltergeist is how often people, I could be wrong, I haven't seen it, but I could be wrong, a lot of people feel like, oh, well, we need to point out that this isn't that time anymore. I see that a lot in new modern movies. I hope that they don't do that. I hope it just flows because it's set now, which,
oh, you mean deliberately making a point of the fact that there's no more static or whatever.
Or the remote doesn't work like that anymore. Click, click, click. Like, that's done a lot. See, we're not that movie. We've updated things. Ta-da! I hope that in the same way that this movie was just, this is how things are now, I hope the new one is. And I really enjoy the movie. I think the practical effects hold up really well. It's, to me, there's, maybe it's not as scary as when I saw it as a kid, but I still think it holds up as a genuinely creepy movie. I still think it's effective when, the swimming pool scene at the end, scary, like, I think it works more if you're willing to get into the psychology of, if this was you, like if this was real, I think those are the most effective things. Like, if the haunting was real, you'd be freaked out, even if it's not as scary. If this was real, a tree tries to eat your child, or you are the child and a tree tries to eat you, the swimming pool scene, all the bits, I think, really work on a lot of levels, and it still holds up really well. I really enjoy this movie a lot.
Yeah, we didn't actually talk about the end with all the skeletons, but anyway, but that's...
the fact that the house is sucked into hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how, explain that. An entire community sees the house like
swallowed up
pulled into basically a black hole.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. But I think the movie is great. It's definitely a classic for a reason.
So fantastic. Thank you. Drew, any final thoughts on Poltergeist?
I gotta say, I was, not because I have a problem with the Poltergeist movies, I actually enjoy them, but because we have done so many haunted house movies over the last year. When it was brought up that we were doing this, I was a little like, oh, come on. Now that I'm actually into talking about it, I am going to say I will thoroughly enjoy this retrospective, because there's a lot of fun stuff that we can get into, like curses. But the movie itself, this is a good flick, a very, very good example of some quintessentially 80s horror. I mean, I think if you were to talk about, if I were to write a book specifically on 80s horror films, like, this would be a movie that I would probably spend a lot of time talking about. It's just a very, very solid, entertaining, good ghost story.
Very good. Yes, I couldn't say anything else. I've said a lot already. I personally think it's it's almost flawless movie. I mean, it's very well put together. It's so well written and chilling, and there are moments that make you tear up. I mean, it's altogether a pretty neat movie, and yes, I love how it captures the time.
And I've got to say, speaking of it capturing the time, that it's kind of fitting that we're talking about Poltergeist on Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, because Star Wars plays such a big part in the cultural awareness of this film.
Yeah, that's true.
My older brother had that Darth Vader action figure case that's in the background of the kids' room in this movie. Like, you were absolutely right. There's like so much of the Star Wars, and it would be very easy to be like, oh man, product placement, but that is actually, when you were that age in the 1980s, like, you just Star Wars was already everywhere. Like, I mean, we think about it being everywhere now, but it already was, just like the steamroller.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's do endorsements in same direction. And so that means, I guess we'll start with Julia. Julia, do you have anything to endorse this week?
You know what I've got to endorse this week?
I'm guessing.
Hello?
And we enjoyed it very much. We went and saw it at the Alamo, so of course we got all the wonderful, crazy Avengers videos beforehand. It's just so bizarre. It's just some crazy stuff out there. I'm sure Tony's seen all of it because it's just all Tony's kind of crazy. But there's just a lot of fun. So if you can see Avengers at the Alamo Draft House, I recommend that particular experience.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. Although I would have liked to have seen like some old Avengers cartoons from the 60s or whatever, but still, it was pretty cool. Yeah, so wait, who went before? It was Tony. Tony before Drew. So, Tony, do you have any endorsements this week besides Avengers: Age of Ultron?
Well, you can talk about that if you want.
I haven't seen Avengers, although I am super stoked for. I have a job where I mostly work, so a lot. So I haven't had a chance, and but yeah, it sucks. But hopefully this week I'm going to remedy that. I am really stoked for Mad Max, and I'm hoping that holds up. That's my Avengers. Lots of people are excited about Avengers. I'm really excited about the new Mad Max, and I just hope it's as good as I hope it is. Geez, I am trying to think. I am on the spot as far as endorsements go. I will endorse and post up Quint's interview with Zelda Rubinstein because I think that's worth hearing. I think he even has audio clips. I'll have to double check. But that's what I'm going to endorse because I think it's awesome. I think it's pretty great that he did that.
Very good. The only thing that I will endorse this week, actually,
Jeez, Tony. Jeez, Jason.
What's that?
You forgot.
Do I not get?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Damn it! I thought that I'd put you before, so I confused myself looking at my notes.
You never ever think about me. You never understood me, Dad.
It's because you're not as attractive as Tony.
Oh my God!
It's because I'm not as attractive as. I'm not the favorite.
Oh man!
Poor Drew.
Well, Drew, you've always got endorsements that I don't. So go, man. Go.
I do have endorsements. Thank you very much. I would like to endorse Showrunner, which is a documentary about people who run TV shows, and I just put it on at random on Netflix this last week, and it's like a no glamour look at what goes into doing a TV show nowadays, and it has a ton of people. It has Joss Whedon, it has J.J. Abrams, it has the guy that does Sons of Anarchy on there. It has, extremely successful shows. It has shows that were canceled after one season. And, how it talked a lot about how we got to this point in television where, why television being run the way it is now. And it's just fascinating. It also makes you never, ever want to work in television because they all incessantly talk about how soul-crushing it is. So, I just, like I said, if you even have like a passing interest in the way TV is written and put together, I highly recommend it. I also have to put in a personal plug because this Wednesday on Comixology, issue 10 of Halloween Man comes out, and
I will talk about this.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yes, and I will talk more about it next week. But needless to say, you should all go on Netflix on Wednesday and buy Halloween Man issue 10. And
Comixology. Sorry.
On Comixology.
You bet.
Comixology, yes. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Jason, you can finish us off now. And
I'm so sorry because I was really excited that Halloween Man is coming this week, so that's great. My only endorsement actually is that today is May the 4th, which everybody's been making a note that it is the time when we remember Star Wars, and that's important. But it also is the time when we remember Kent State, which happened today in 1970. May 4th, 1970 was when the Ohio National Guard went to Kent State University in Kent, Ohio, and shot 4 students to death because they were protesting the Vietnam War. And so, people all the time are going, "Oh, I've never seen the country this bad," and and all you have to do is think back to 1970, and we literally had Army guys shooting students on campus. So it is very interesting to read up on. There's some good documentaries. And
do you have a documentary to endorse or no?
There actually is one, but I can't remember the name of it. So I would just say, if you're interested in finding out about Kent State, which is today, in 1970, you can start with the Wikipedia page, and there are a number of decent documentaries.
Mm.
So,
hey, I hear Texas is going to try to overthrow the president. So that's good.
Well, he should never invade. Whatever.
Right.
Oh, it's so. And
Can somebody explain to me, for some reason over the last week, there is this notion that apparently the federal government is creating tunnels under abandoned Walmarts and is going to...
I haven't even read it. Wow. That's amazing. And I don't...
Somehow the governor of Texas,
I didn't vote
the
for
liberal
that
bastion,
shit. All right.
the liberal bastion that the governor's office is, has had to send in the state guard to quash this mutiny or this overthrowing of the president.
I'm just going to go down on record saying I voted for Wendy Davis.
It's not supposed to be the overthrowing of the president. It's supposed to be that the president is sending...
No. But then that's the whole thing, is that there's a group in Texas that wants to overthrow the presidency because they're doing...
to stop this invasion of Texas.
Right.
But wait, with these tunnels, so are we...
Yeah, the conspiracy...
I need to read up... The president is deploying mole men to attack
the president. Well, actually,
awesome.
The president apparently...
I didn't know we had mole men. That's a totally different thing than...
They're not actually mole men. They're Chinese soldiers smuggled in who are going to be coming up from under the ground via tunnels.
But
I feel sort of like about these notions, how Jason feels about curses.
Oh, man. Wow, that's amazing. I thought we had a lot of stuff when we had Navy SEALs, but I had no idea that there was a force of Chinese mole men at the beck and call of the president. Wow.
I'm sure
there's been a lot of things revealed this week. The KGB just revealed that they financed punk rock.
By the way, you can read up that that we claim, and there's been many articles about it, that we finance both rock and roll and modern art in the exact same way. That's like add the opposite number to the punk rock thing.
I find the idea that the KGB tried that the KGB put the money behind punk rock to be a fascinating notion that doesn't hold a lot of weight when you start to get into some of the individual personalities. Like the guy name drops the Ramones.
Well,
specifically.
Nobody said it was a great plan.
Even a little bit about Johnny Ramone knows that guy weren't no commies.
No, I know. But I like the idea. I kind of do like the idea of KGB. Anarchy is a terrible thing to back. It sometimes will blow up in your face. I think that's kind of funny.
If I were an anarchist punk rocker and a guy in a raincoat showed up at one of my shows and said, "Hello, comrade, I give you money now to help undermine, the imperialist republic," I would be like, "Yeah, okay, I'll take your money." Weird.
Well, I will have to say that a lot of the controversy around how the Sex Pistols was formed, kind of, you're kind of like, yeah, I could see it, the way it's put together, yeah, okay. The Ramones, not so much.
I want to say that I had this wonderful idea of continuing to add to the the conspiracy theories surrounding the invasion of Texas by Chinese mallmen. And so I was thinking...
KGB punk rocker.
Yeah,
Texas is being invaded by
rock.
KGB punk rocker.
I think
punk rock
that
Chinese mallmen, which, by the way, that sounds like a good band name.
Some of you may know that the Battleship Texas is anchored right offshore in Houston at the San Jacinto Monument. I think that in times of invasion by molemen from other countries, the Battleship Texas turns into a giant mech and just starts walking across Texas.
With
big
the flag of Texas flying high, like off the
Big Tex is a mech, all right? Anybody who's lived in Dallas knows the Big Tex is actually a mech.
destroyed by fire, so I guess
no, but
he had to rebuild.
they got Big Tex too now. So
yeah.
How do you think he was destroyed by fire? He was fighting Godzilla.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Well, I love the idea of
Big
Chinese
Tex
mole
Jaeger.
punk band name.
I like the idea of this Big Tex Jaeger. That would be awesome.
Yes.
The strongest Texans must pilot Big Tex.
Yes.
Welcome, as it screams in that crazy voice. That just,
Howdy,
loops.
Yes.
Yeah, just loops.
For those who've
whatever
never been to
monster
Texas,
it's trying to fight.
I don't even
like
know how
idea.
to describe. You know, Big Tex. Big Tex is a giant mechanical machine person.
He's
He's just a big cowboy that stands in the middle of the Texas State Fair, and he's like, what, I don't know, how many feet tall you'd say? Maybe like 50 feet tall?
He's roughly King Kong sized.
He doesn't really move around. He just, his head moves. I think his arm maybe moves. But his voice is this guy, you know, he just says, you know, whatever you just said.
Howdy, y'all.
I do like the idea of deploying Big Tex to stomp Chinese mallmen as a fictional tale. That sounds really awesome.
He is 55 feet.
I'm
guarantee you it's
imagining
better
the League
than
of Extraordinary Texans. It's
all
Big
I'm
Tex,
missing is a fire shark.
the ghost of Davy Crockett.
Yeah.
This thing would be
I-35
better. Sorry, we're terrible today about talking over each other. I apologize.
I'm so sorry.
I think all of this is going to be better. This idea of Big Tex fighting Chinese mallmen is better than the last Red Dawn remake. Like, I much would rather see this than what we got. So, hey, this should be a thing. Definitely.
I just wanted to point out that there's also a giant Sam Houston statue not far from...
Well, don't forget the Popeye statue.
Oh, man.
Where's the Popeye statue?
That's in... Shoot, it's the place where they grow a lot of spinach. They got a Popeye statue, and I can't remember where it's at.
Sweet. Next week when we talk about the curse, we will also talk about the Popeye statue.
Well, it's the unofficial birthplace of Popeye, so, you know. Popeye is a Texan.
What's the official birthplace?
I don't know that he has an official birthplace as a cartoon character, but I'm glad that the state of Texas can claim Popeye.
That is really surprising to me, to be honest with you. I kind of imagined that Popeye would be from somewhere in the South, but I don't know why I thought that. But
well, I mean, you can't understand them. You can't understand most people from Texas. It makes sense.
Texas is the South. Anyways, all right. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you are listening, here is your assignment for the next week. Besides from watching Poltergeist 2, find a friend, sit them down, and point at your music producing machine, like your iPod or iPad or your whatever, and say, I want you to listen to the show, and then lock them in and run away. Because we also always want to get new listeners, and I think that's how our new listeners are coming to us now, because we keep hearing from them. Leave reviews for us on iTunes. It would mean so much to us if you did, and it actually helps people find the show. Thank you so much. Come to the Facebook page and leave comments. We will engage with you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be on tonight. I'm sorry for talking over any of you, and I totally respect the curse. Let's discuss that next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.